Every school has its stories. Whispers of something lurking in the dark, tales passed down from one class to the next. But at Roosevelt High, those stories are more than just stories. Welcome back to the channel, Mr. Richard. Tonight we dive into the chilling tale of Roosevelt High, a school that still stands but holds a dark, unspeakable past. Roosevelt High School was built in 1923 in the small, quiet town of Elmwood, tucked away in the heart of the Midwest. At the time, the building was a modern marvel, boasting towering brick walls, grand hallways, and a shining auditorium. The pride of the community, it was meant to symbolize the future, a place where dreams would come to life. But what many didn't know was that Roosevelt High was built on land that had a strange history. Long before the school was constructed, the land was home to an old farmhouse where a family of settlers once lived. Their story ended tragically in 1915, when a fire destroyed the home and claimed the lives of the family. The ashes of their once happy home were buried under the foundations of the school. Some say the fire's spirits never truly left. Despite the dark rumors surrounding the school's construction, Roosevelt High continued to thrive throughout the 1930s and 1940s. It was a place where future leaders were shaped, but behind the scenes, the school began to gain a reputation for strange occurrences. In the late 1950s, the hauntings became more apparent. Students began to report hearing footsteps in empty hallways, lockers slamming shut on their own, and strange shadows moving across classrooms when no one was there. But the most chilling incident occurred on a dark night in 1959. Emily Carter was a 16-year-old sophomore at Roosevelt. A bright student, well-liked by her peers, Emily had a dream to become a journalist. On the night of the annual school prom, she vanished without a trace. Her date, a boy named Thomas, said she went to the bathroom but never returned. Police searched the school, but there was no sign of her. Despite extensive searches, no clues were ever found. Emily's family, devastated, never received any answers. The police chalked it up to a runaway incident, but many students believed otherwise. Some even whispered that Emily's disappearance had something to do with the strange occurrences in the school, and that she had become a part of the building's dark legacy. To this day, Emily Carter's disappearance remains a mystery. Some say she still roams the halls of Roosevelt High searching for answers. Others claim to hear her voice crying out from the dark corners of the school. But one thing is certain: Roosevelt High's haunting history is far from over. Now the question remains, what really happened to Emily? Was she the victim of a tragic accident, or did something darker at Roosevelt High claim her soul? Former students and faculty of Roosevelt High have shared their stories of strange, unexplainable events. Most tried to brush them off as mere coincidence, but some, like Mr. Thompson, couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker was at play. Mr. Thompson. Back in the 80s, I was part of the school's basketball team. We'd often stay late after practice, but there was one night I'll never forget. It was late December, cold as ice, and the snow outside was thick on the ground. The power in the gym was always a bit flaky, but this night was different. Mr. Thompson. We were standing there, all of us frozen, just waiting for the lights to come back on. We figured it was just another electrical issue, nothing new. But when the lights finally flickered back on, the basketballs, they were all lined up in a perfect row at mid-court, like they'd been placed there one by one. Nobody touched them, nobody had time to move them. But there they were, perfectly aligned, not a single one out of place. The team couldn't explain it, and neither could the coach. Mr. Thompson. Everyone was creeped out. I swear we heard footsteps too, slow, deliberate steps, as if someone was walking on the court with us, even though no one was there. After that night, none of us stayed late again. This time, Ms. Linda Jenkins, now in her late 50s, sits in her kitchen. Her hands tremble slightly as she stirs a cup of tea, glancing nervously at the doorway behind her. Ms. Jenkins, a former English teacher at Roosevelt for almost 20 years, witnessed something that would forever alter her perception of the school. Ms. Jenkins. I had been teaching for about 10 years when it happened. It was a typical quiet afternoon. Most students had left for the day, and I stayed behind to grade papers. I'd been in the school hundreds of times before, but that evening, something felt different. There was this heavy silence, like the school was holding its breath. I looked up, and there she was, a girl, dressed in a prom gown, her hair styled like something from the 1950s. She was standing in the back of my classroom just watching me. I thought, maybe she's a lost student or someone's daughter. But I knew something was off. She wasn't moving. She wasn't even blinking. I standing up and walking toward the figure. As she flips the classroom light switch, the figure disappears in an instant, leaving the room empty. The door is ajar, but the air feels colder. When I turned on the lights, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just an empty room. But the feeling, it stayed. Like something had just passed through me, something that shouldn't have been there. Ms. Jenkins walking through the empty halls, looking over her shoulder. A low, unsettling hum fills the air. Ms. Jenkins, that wasn't the last time either. I started hearing footsteps in the hallway after that. Slow, deliberate steps, like someone walking toward my classroom. But when I went to check, no one was there. It got so bad that eventually I had to leave early on some nights. I couldn't take it anymore. Ms. Jenkins wasn't the only one who experienced these haunting events. Former students and faculty alike have reported hearing disembodied voices, strange figures in the halls, and cold spots that never seem to have a source. A younger man, Ethan Miller, now in his 30s, walking with a serious expression. The setting is outside Roosevelt High, as he recalls his own terrifying experience. Ethan Miller, it was late spring. I stayed late one day in the library to finish a project. The librarian, Mrs. Taylor, was the only other person there. She had already gone home when I heard the noise. Ethan sits at a table in the library surrounded by books. The lights above flicker sporadically. A distant rustling noise fills the room, followed by the sound of pages turning rapidly. Ethan looks up, startled. Ethan Miller. At first I thought it was the wind or something, but the sound kept getting louder, like someone flipping through a book really quickly. I looked around, nothing, but I could hear it clearer and clearer. Pages turning, like a book being rifled through. A book on the table, pages flipping as if someone is turning them, but no one is touching it. Ethan Miller. I called out, but there was no answer. I checked the whole library, no one. That was the last time I ever stayed there after hours. There's no way I could explain what happened. Ethan standing outside Roosevelt, his eyes filled with apprehension. These experiences, while terrifying, were not isolated incidents. Roosevelt High has long been a source of eerie tales, passed down from one generation to the next. But the question remains, what is it that haunts this place, and why does it refuse to let go? Some say it's the restless spirit of Emily Carter, forever searching for answers. Others believe it's the lingering energy of the many tragedies that have unfolded within these walls. But one thing is clear, whatever haunts Roosevelt High is far from finished. To uncover the truth about Roosevelt High, we began with its history. What we discovered was a pattern of tragedy, mystery, and chilling evidence that refused to stay buried. A dusty filing cabinets and yellow newspapers scattered across a wooden table. A researcher wearing gloves pulls out a faded document with bold letters. Emily Carter, Missing Persons Report, 1959. The first clue in our investigation was the disappearance of Emily Carter, a high school senior who vanished on prom night. At the time, authorities ruled it a runaway case, but new evidence suggests a much darker reality. A police report with a handwritten note. Witnesses heard screams in the auditorium at 9:15 p.m. No evidence found. Several students reported hearing strange noises that night, laughter, screams, and faint whispers. But by the time anyone arrived, Emily was gone, and the school was eerily silent. The auditorium, the doors creak open, revealing the stage bathed in unnatural shadows. Emily steps forward hesitantly, her breath visible in the cold air. A shadow moves behind her, but she doesn't see it. A night vision footage from a paranormal investigation team showing the school's dark hallways. The camera trembles slightly as the team moves cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Lead investigator. We're heading toward the auditorium. We've had reports of cold spots and disembodied voices in this area. The doorway of the auditorium. Suddenly, a loud bang echoes through the halls and the team freezes. Investigator, whispering. Did you hear that? It came from the stage. The team approaches the stage. The night vision shows an old piano sitting in the corner, its keys covered in dust. Without warning, one of the keys presses down on its own, producing a single haunting note. The investigators gasp, and one drops the camera, causing the footage to cut to static. The team captured chilling audio and visual evidence that night, including what appeared to be a faint figure standing on the stage, visible only through infrared. An infrared image, a faint outline of a person in a long dress standing at the edge of the stage. The figure appears to turn toward the camera before vanishing. An interview with Sarah Williams, a historian seated in front of a wall of old photographs and maps. Sarah Williams. The clock tower at Roosevelt High has always been a point of fascination and fear. In 1973, Henry Bowers, the school janitor, was found dead at the base of the tower. The official report called it an accident, but locals believe he was pushed by something unseen. Henry, holding a set of keys, climbs the narrow staircase of the clock tower. His flashlight flickers as he reaches the top. He pauses, turning suddenly, his expression frozen in terror. The camera focuses on his trembling hand gripping the railing. Suddenly, he slips, his scream echoing as the screen cuts to black. Since his death, the clock tower has been sealed off, but students and faculty have reported hearing footsteps and whispers from inside, sounds that shouldn't be possible in a locked, abandoned space. A paranormal investigator sets up equipment outside the door. An EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recording plays, revealing a faint voice whispering, "Help me." The library is another hotspot for activity. Former students have reported books flying off shelves, sudden cold drafts, and faint voices calling their names. Tonight, we're here to see if the stories are true. A book falls off the shelf with a loud thud. The flashlight flickers as we bends down to pick it up. The book's title reads, "The Missing Girl." This wasn't here before. A low, guttural sound emanates from deep within the library, growing louder. The camera shakes as the narrator quickly exits the room. Our investigation led us to the school's boiler room, an area rarely accessed by students or staff. What we found there was shocking. A narrow staircase into the boiler room. The walls are covered in graffiti, some of which appears fresh. The flashlight reveals scratch marks on the concrete floor. These marks, they weren't made by tools. They look like claw marks. The flashlight sweeps across the room, revealing an old rusted door. We hesitate before opening it, revealing a small hidden chamber. Inside, they find a dusty prom corsage lying on the ground. Could this have belonged to Emily Carter? Or is it a sinister token left by whatever haunts this place? Suddenly, the sound of heavy breathing fills the room. The camera captures a faint shadow moving across the wall, though no one is there. What we've uncovered at Roosevelt High is only the beginning. From tragic disappearances to unexplained phenomena, this school holds secrets that may never be fully revealed. One thing is certain, the spirits here aren't resting, and they may never will. The school from a distance as the sun begins to rise. A faint figure can be seen in one of the windows before vanishing. This is it, our final night at Roosevelt High. Over the past few weeks, we've uncovered chilling evidence of paranormal activity. Whispers in empty halls, shadowy figures darting through classrooms, and objects moving on their own. Tonight, we confront the heart of the haunting. This is our last chance to uncover the truth. We've documented enough to know something is here. Whether it's a restless spirit or something darker, tonight we'll find out. Thermal cameras, flashlights, motion detectors, EMF meters, and a recorder labeled Emergency Evidence Log. An investigator grips a crucifix tightly, muttering a quick prayer. Entering the school. The heavy double doors creak open. The team steps into the darkened hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing ominously. The flashlight beams barely penetrate the thick darkness. The air seems unnaturally heavy, and a cold draft blows through the hall. Investigator 1, whispering, "Do you feel that? It's like the air is alive." A faint whisper is heard, but no one can make out the words. The team stops, exchanging nervous glances. Investigator 2, "I thought I just heard." Suddenly, the door slams shut behind them, the echo reverberating through the halls. Everyone jumps, and the cameraman swings the lens toward the doors, now sealed tight. Investigator 3, "It's trying to trap us in here." The team regroups and decides to split up into pairs. one to the library, another to the auditorium, and a final pair to the boiler room. The library, where rows of dusty, towering shelves create a labyrinth of shadows. The team's flashlight beams flicker as they step deeper into the room. Investigator 1. Let's set up the recorder here. If something's been moving books, we'll catch it. One investigator places an audio recorder on a table, while another scans the shelves with a thermal camera. Investigator 2, watching the thermal camera. Wait, there's something, a heat signature, but it's moving, and there's no one over there. The camera pans to a far corner of the library. The flashlight beam lands on a row of books, just as they all tumble off the shelf with a loud crash. Papers scatter into the air, swirling as if caught in an invisible current. Investigator 1 trembling. This is insane. We need to leave. As they turn to exit, the handheld camera catches a shadowy figure between the shelves. It stands motionless for a moment before vanishing into thin air. The auditorium, where the stage looms in the darkness. Dust covers the seats, and the silence is oppressive. Faint piano notes drift through the air, though the piano on stage sits untouched. Investigator 1. That music, how is it playing? They cautiously step onto the stage. As they do, the sound stops abruptly, replaced by a low, guttural growl. A chair in the front row slides back with a screech, then topples over on its own. Investigator 2, shaking. Okay, this is not normal. We're not alone here. The camera captures a fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure standing in the wings of the stage, its head tilted unnaturally. It steps forward, but the light cuts out briefly. When it returns, the figure is gone. In the boiler room, damp air is thick with the smell of rust and mildew. The walls are lined with old pipes, some of which drip water onto the floor. Cameraman, this place gives me the creeps. Let's make this quick. As they explore, a loud metallic clang echoes through the room. They swing the flashlight toward the sound, revealing an old locker creaking open on its own. Inside, they find a torn notebook covered in cryptic, handwritten messages. They see you. Don't stay. It's too late. Investigator. Who wrote this? And what do they mean by, it's too late? A cold wind blows through the room, extinguishing their flashlight. The camera's night vision clicks on, revealing glowing eyes in the darkness. A guttural growl rumbles through the air, and the eyes move closer. Cameraman screaming, "Run!" The footage becomes chaotic as they flee, tripping over pipes and debris. The growling grows louder, almost deafening, as they scramble back upstairs. The teams regroup at the entrance, panting and visibly shaken. They try to push open the doors, but they won't budge. Investigator. It's not letting us leave. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes through the halls, growing louder and faster. The crucifix in one investigator's hand starts to shake violently. Investigator 2, panicked. Stay together. Don't split up again. The camera swings wildly as the team huddles. A shadowy figure emerges at the end of the hallway, its eyes glowing red. The whispers grow into a deafening roar. The footage you just watched is the last known recording of the investigation team at Roosevelt High. Their equipment was recovered, but the team was never found. This concludes our investigation at Roosevelt High. The team was never seen again. Their final footage serves as a chilling reminder of the unknown forces that linger in the dark. If you've witnessed or experienced anything paranormal, share your story with us in the comments. Every haunted location has a story, and we want to hear yours.